everybody. It has been a crazy election night, some surprises, and some unexpected disappointments, I think, too.
Yeah, the technical glitches on this podcast.
Mark has already dropped the ball, punching once again the show. We've already recorded this once. We're going to do it again. We have guests tonight, rather, at midnight. Okay, yes. Cinderella. We all turn into pumpkins here shortly. But we have, you want to do the introduction?
Yeah, I can do that. Jay McCluskey is a political consultant. He worked on our campaigns. He is working on Darren White's campaign, and he is a little excited about coming out with Darren's results tonight. Very good stuff.
And you know who else is here?
Yes, I do.
Long-time listener.
Long-time listener.
First-time guest.
First-time guest.
Family member, basically.
Family member.
And world's greatest fundraiser, Jessica Perez.
Jessica Perez. We bring Jessica. Jessica, let's give her that. Let's give her a round of applause, Jess. Thank you very much.
We've been trying to get you on the show for 3 years. Yeah. So welcome, Jess. We appreciate it.
I like to play hard to get.
Yeah. You're doing a great job.
It's great to have you, Jess.
Yeah, it's great to have you. Yeah. Nice.
There she is, everybody. There she is. You're welcome. Okay, so the reason we want to have Jessica on is a couple different things. Jay and Jess obviously are deeply involved in the mayor's race, which has come down to be very, very close, and it's going to go to a runoff between Tim Keller and Darren White. It's what we've been saying for a long time, I think, but it turned out very well for Darren White. I think there's a lot of reason to be excited about this race. If you're somebody in Albuquerque who has just become really frustrated with where things are, I think there's a real opportunity with what happened tonight. So we're going to talk to Jay about that. We're going to talk to Jessica as well about what it's like to raise money for these races. She did this work for us in a statewide race. There is no message getting anywhere without raising the money to do it. So that's why we want to talk about some of what that means. And then we're going to get into the national races as well in New Jersey and in Virginia. There are some real concerns there. In New York, there are real concerns there. And it's something we've talked about with the Trump administration for months. And that is, if you don't pay attention to the economy, you will rue the day that you decided that, you'd stand up for an election, because it's going to be an issue. There's no question. So we'll get into details on that. But obviously, we start here in Albuquerque.
Yeah. This was kind of I don't know. Is it unexpected? Or is this kind of where we thought? I don't want to brag, you guys, but I called these numbers earlier this afternoon.
All right, I think that's ludicrous. But here are the numbers.
I did. Did I not call these numbers earlier today? Well, I really did.
We don't have the absolute updated numbers, but these are close to where things are going to end up. Keller around 36%, Darren White around 31%. So Darren outperforms partisanship, meaning it's not just Republicans voting for him. You got at least 6 points above. Even if every single Republican voted for him, he still performs 6 points above that, which every single Republican didn't vote for him. So those numbers are encouraging. So this is really a pretty close race. Keller at 36, White at 31, Ubaez at 18. Luis Sanchez ended up at 7. He was burned down to the ground pretty much. And you can thank the guy in the black shirt sitting at the table with us for that one. But we'll get into details on that in a second. And then Mailing Armijo, 5%. Eddie Varela, 2%. And, of course, Daniel Chavez went out pretty early.
Yeah.
So, first of all, Jay, you got to be excited with these numbers.
I think these are fantastic numbers. It was Keller. Any race with an incumbent is in a re-election race is about the incumbent. And so the fact that Keller had basically 65% of the public of voters voting against him and saying they want change is a loud message. And for Darren to come up as big as he did at 31%, given our shoestring budget we were running on and what we were, as far as our ability to advertise, is big. And it sends a message that people are gravitating towards him and towards that message. And so we're really encouraged going into the runoff. And obviously it's going to be a challenge. It's an incumbent mayor. He's going to lean on the partisan advantage he thinks he has. But I think what we're seeing tonight is voters across party lines are saying we want change.
Right. And you explained a little bit of this to me earlier, but Keller spent, 2-1? Is that what we're saying?
At least 2-1, 3-1 against Darren on this, and he still is not able to move that number. And Mark, you guys released a poll earlier, and Keller basically finished where that was. And it just tells you he's not able to move that number, and that's the challenge for incumbents. It's why incumbents do not like runoffs, because by definition, when you're in a runoff, that means the majority of voters already voted against you. And the election's always about the incumbent.
Well, and I think, again, Darren's had very clear messages. At least every time I have talked to him, he's been very clear, and he's been on the show a handful of times as well. He wants to clean up our crime issue. He wants to replace Chief Medina, which is critical in bringing and recruiting other officers. And he wants to really crack down on our homelessness issue, right? And have real solutions for those things. Then you have Keller, who I watched tonight, okay? You guys probably did too, but watching Keller get on live television tonight. He is just like, listen, you guys, this is about Albuquerque solutions. And I'm going to find us some Albuquerque solutions. That's what I'm here for. And I'm like, that's what you've been supposed to be doing for the last 8 years, guy. So what is he hiding back? Like,
well, it's just funny to me because this is a mayor who can't run on results. And so he's scrambling around trying to talk about things, but he can't run on results because he has failed. He's had 8 years to do this, and he's failed. And I think that's why you saw the results you did tonight. That's why he struggled when he's trying to like come up with a speech to give voters a reason why they should vote for him. And he's trying to run for an unprecedented third consecutive term. So he's had 8 years, and he's promising the same thing if you listen to him.
Yeah.
He thinks he has all the answers, and you see his ads. He's like, no one knows how great I am. Yeah. No one will tell you how great I am.
The media are lying. I'm like, what? The media are your best friend right now. So I don't understand that.
Yeah, and when you look, I mean, and this is, we talk about it all the time on this show. If you have the cleanest message, it's so much easier in politics. When you're the person left trying to explain, if you have to have the last word, you are losing. It's that simple. And that's why Darren's message, being so simple as it is, there is a massive opportunity here. I also think there's a massive communication gap between anybody who has served 8 years in office and now is trying to learn you what you need to know about him. Because with every passing year, he gets further from the voters, believe it or not. Well, and I think that ends up being something that is devastating because you start sounding like a technocrat. And when you start sounding like a technocrat, you don't sound like a voter, and you surely don't sound like you understand a voter.
Well, no, I think his message has been very clear, Mark. We talked about this on the show, like right after the debate. He said in that debate, if you're looking at the mayor or your leadership to fix the problems, you're looking at the wrong place. I mean, basically, he's telling people that you're a business owner and downtown's a mess. Well, you got to pay for your own security. You got to clean up after the homeless. You got to clean up the drugs. This is all on you. Like, don't look to me to fix this. I mean, he said it on the debate.
And what's amazing is when he was first elected mayor, he said it's the mayor's responsibility to fight crime.
Right.
Yeah. So this guy will say
he's not
whatever
the same guy. Yeah. He's not the same guy. No. He's a totally different person. Those two don't even know each other anymore. Right. Why? Because he had none of the baggage, and he's walking around with the baggage. And eventually, if enough people give you the stink eye and enough people actually call you on your garbage, which I guarantee you he's had it happen. Heck, Ava did it to him, to his face, right? She really got in his face, and she said, what are you doing with sanctuary cities?
And he was willing to lie to those kids.
Yes.
Yeah. And it is amazing. So, but again, all of this is great. And you guys got into a situation where you raised, I don't know, $250,000, maybe $300,000 total in this race. It was hard to do.
Well, and you talk about our message and how clean our message was, and you guys talk about these debates, but who watches these?
Yeah.
Well, no.
I mean, the fact that we were able, I mean, we have a great message and we have a great platform, and we had barely any money to get it out there. The only way you get your message out there is if you have the funds to be able to educate. And the numbers tonight show like what we were able to do with the little amount of money that we had was huge.
No, that is huge. So let's talk about that. I want to talk about fundraising for a second. We'll get into some funnier stories here in a minute, but I want to talk about fundraising and the difference between fundraising in Albuquerque and fundraising across other parts of the state. When you start a statewide campaign, if you run one, the first place you go is southeastern New Mexico, because there is a different mentality down there. People down there sit down with you and say, what do you need to do? What do you need from me? And they jump right in. They do. And then up here in Albuquerque, there are some great supporters and people that want change. And they, believe it or not, they come across the political aisle. You'd be surprised at some of the people that will give you money, right? But it's much more difficult here. You guys had trouble raising money. What's the plan here, and what's the pitch that you make to a donor in Albuquerque who says, Darren did better than I thought. There's a crack door open here. What are you going to tell them, Jess?
Right. Well, I mean, it was extremely difficult to raise money these last couple of months. I mean, you're running against an incumbent, which is usually heavily favored. They knew that he had public financing, a huge amount of money. And then you have these business owners that are already struggling. They're already struggling to do business in Albuquerque, do security, pay all these other things that this mayor has burdened these business owners with. So to tell them, hey, you have a chance, write us a check.
Yeah.
You know, they didn't feel like we really had a chance. And so it was a huge struggle to get people to believe in us and invest in the campaign. And so I think we have a huge opportunity to say we have a real shot.
All right. So then I live in Carlsbad, and I say, okay, I live in Carlsbad. I don't live in Albuquerque. Why are you coming to me? I assume you're going to do a statewide campaign for money, right?
Absolutely.
I would, right?
Yeah,
okay, why?
Because if we can change Albuquerque and get a Republican in here, it's going to benefit us hugely coming into next year. What RJ Berry?
Yeah, I mean, the last time you first got to realize Albuquerque's 90% of the state out of the Albuquerque media market. The last time we elected a Republican mayor, the very next year we elected a Republican governor, Republican statewide office holders. So it all matters. It all fits into this. In addition to the policy changes that you can do that really benefit the entire state.
Like one thing that obviously Darren's been very key on is he said, I'm going to end sanctuary cities, right?
Yes.
So in the sanctuary city here of Albuquerque, which to me is huge, right? Especially when we have criminals that we've been talking about on our show that are here illegally, they're running a kidnapping ring here, right? And
I mean, think about it. The FBI set the record for their biggest fentanyl bust. Where was it? Albuquerque.
Yeah.
A couple years later, the DEA said the biggest fentanyl bust in their history. And where was it centered out of? Albuquerque.
We're trafficking people from Mexico to Albuquerque, kidnapping them, and then having them to be bought out of a flop house.
But think about why. Because if you get arrested in Albuquerque, you're probably back on the streets within a day.
Right.
Or if not a couple
and if you're
hours.
here illegally from a different country,
You're still-
nobody's going to know.
And you're still going to be released back out on the streets in a day.
Right. And I think, again, those message points of Keller has said, I'm not going to work with ICE. This is not my plan. This is not my strategy. Darren White, polar opposite when it comes to that, says he will work with all federal agencies
this is
to
very
make sure
clear.
that we get crime under control.
If someone gets arrested for a crime, ICE will be able to check them as they get booked into the jail.
Right.
So that's who this is affecting. So if someone gets arrested for a burglary or a robbery and they're here illegally, they're not going to get released back out on the streets. Or the example you talked about on the show, where you have a man arrested for strangling and beating his wife, threatening to kill the kid. He gets arrested, and if Darren White was mayor, he would have been held by ICE. He wouldn't have been let out of jail. Instead, this guy was let out of jail, and a month later he commits a murder.
Right.
Like these policies matter.
Yeah.
Okay, let's do a quick thing here. I just want to make sure that we were at the Darren White event when he kind of got the first round of votes in, and it was all the early and absentee stuff. So really, that's a huge indicator of where you are. As soon as those numbers came out, it was obvious. It was Darren White, and it was Mayor Keller, and everybody else was a ways behind. So here's just a couple seconds of Darren's comments when he realized that he was going to end up in the runoff.
So here's what we want you to do. There's obviously still a ways to go, but 80,000 votes have been cast, and it's pretty clear how this is going to end up. That we're going to have a runoff, but I also want to leave you with this too, that Mayor Keller, who has served for 8 years, is only at 38%. And so that is telling you that the majority of people in Albuquerque
And may hit
want
34.
change for their city. And that's what this campaign has been all about. It's been about change. It's about providing a better quality of life for everyone who lives in our city. So we're very, very excited. We're going to ask you to stay.
Okay, couple quick things you take from that. First of all, Darren does a really good job. I think he did a good job when he was on this show. I think he does a good job in general of staying on message. That's not an easy thing for a candidate always to do, but he does it, I think, really well. Number two, it's easy to stay on message when your message is that simple. And that's why the winner in politics invariably is the person who has the cleanest, tightest message and the easiest message to process. Because voters, and Jay, this is one of your favorite lines, voters have this antiquated thought that elections are about them. Right. And they do. And they think, is my life better off than it was 8 years ago? And there are very few people who can say yes to that answer as far as how they live their life in the city that they choose to live, which is Albuquerque. So
well, even Jess, I mean, I always talk about when you come up here, you're like, you find this because you don't live in Albuquerque. So when you come up here, you feel how unsafe it is compared to other parts of the state.
Right. Yeah. I have a 24-hour rule. I only stay here for 24 hours.
Oh, wow. Okay. Only 24 hours. Okay, that's kind of frightening. Well, another thing, too, that's interesting that I heard Darren say tonight when he was asked by one of the news operations that were there tonight, they said, would you be willing to do another debate against Keller for this runoff? And he said, you bet, because there is no time like the present to talk about what I plan to do and how much different it is from what Keller has been doing. So I thought that was pretty clear too. So do you anticipate?
Oh, I would expect there'll be as many debates. We'll agree to as many debates as he wants to do. And I don't think I mean, you
not
saw
gonna
it today.
agree to
He's
that
not going to
many.
want to be doing a whole
No.
lot. He's going to want to use his IE and his dark money to run he's going to run a very negative, very partisan campaign so he doesn't have to run on issues or his record. Those are the two things he doesn't want to deal with.
And there couldn't be a bigger difference between standing on a debate stage with 4 or 5 candidates and standing one-on-one. There's a totally
So you're saying you don't think Keller's going to debate?
Well, I'm not saying he may or may not, but the point being, you won't do it a lot. I can guarantee you that. And I think what you find if you're a guy like Keller is you don't want to be in that one-on-one because there's nowhere to escape to, right? You don't have the ability to wait for Louis to get himself tied up in a word salad where you get 30 seconds of reprieve and then you go on to Mei Ling, who God only knows what she's talking about, and then Eddie Varela can go wandering off somewhere. So you get a break in those situations, and you don't get that when you're one-on-one. But one thing that I think is interesting about the numbers, though, that we see tonight, I want to go through these one more time. So Darren's numbers are at 31, but if I'm looking at these numbers, Jay, and I see this and I go, Keller, I think he's incredibly soft on his numbers. But one thing I look at is right on this line here, right where you have Keller, just below him is Ubias. Okay, Ubias is at 18%. Ubias is running left of Keller. So you would think Ubias's voters are Keller's voters, basically, who abandoned him after a very rough 8 years. So the question I would ask you, Jay, is if you look at those numbers and you add it up, the way for Keller to get to 50 is through Ubias. So how in the world are you going to make a case for the voters that are left of Keller to come support Darren?
Well, what I would say, and I'd agree with you if it was an open seat. If this was an open seat, but it's an incumbent running. And so what you really have is those who want to reelect the incumbent and those who want change. And so while those probably are more progressive voters, those are voters who want change. And what you're seeing with Darren today is trying to unite change-minded voters. And that's why it's always a challenge for an incumbent when they end up in a runoff. They don't want to get in there because they know elections are about them. And they've already had a big majority of voters vote against them. And so I think what you'll see is a lot of those voters are going to go over to Darren because a couple things. Darren's running where he's saying he's going to run for one term. He talked tonight about having a bipartisan cabinet come together. He's talking about uniting change-minded voters and addressing these issues that matter, crime and homelessness. And that's why Mayor Keller is not going to want to talk about any of that. And his way to do it is to run a negative campaign, make it as partisan as he can to try to appeal to those voters. He does have an advantage because of the partisanship of the city. We know that. But
answer this then. Though, if you see, so we know if I'm Keller, I run against Trump. I don't run against Darren.
Right.
Right. So, okay. So what's your counter to Keller running against Trump versus running against Darren?
Our counter is Jessica Perez.
Yes.
Who needs to raise money. And that's where our challenge is the campaign. And it's a challenge for anyone who wants to see change in Albuquerque. We have to come together on this because we can't let him get away with that. We have to take the message of change and his record in the crime and homelessness and make this election local about what it's really about and not let him bury us with negative ads. Like you said, he'll try to morph Darren into Trump. He'll try to make this about anything but what is happening in Albuquerque. And that's why it's incumbent upon us to unite people, to raise the money necessary, and to communicate our message.
Jessica, what about the money necessary? So you guys talked about how tough it was to get through this stage of the campaign. You were grinding it out. Yeah.
Especially against an incumbent mayor that has been proven to retaliate against donors that give against him.
Yeah.
I mean, we fought that the
So what does
whole
that
way.
mean? By the way, most voters and most people who listen to this podcast don't even know what that's all about. So, and some of us who have had it happen understand it. So what do you mean? Like when you sit down with people, what do you sometimes hear? Not specifics, but what do you sometimes hear from people about this stuff where if I give to you, here's what may happen?
Yeah. No, that either have businesses that have to do with the city or a contract that could be affected that they won't give because they know that the Democrats always retaliate against them.
Yeah.
That if they are going to give to their opponent, they will get retaliated against. A business owner that's probably already struggling and then is going to lose something from that, right? So that's a real thing that Keller's been known to do, that the people in Albuquerque that have businesses here are very worried about. And so our job is to go out there and show, hey, we have a real chance. Will you please invest in us?
And is there a tipping? Have you noticed in campaigns that there's a tipping point when you see that there's this point?
Absolutely.
People are scared like that, right? But when they feel like, wait a minute, we got a shot, and then all of a sudden you hit a tipping point and it blows up, and you go,
absolutely. Just the momentum of tonight to go into tomorrow to say we have a real shot. I think that the donors and the voters here are saying like, this is real. We actually do have a chance to fight back. There's a lot of voter fatigue saying, are we gonna win a race? Are we gonna push back? Yes, Keller's awful, but he continues to clearly still win, right? And so I think that's on us to make sure that we do. Also, I mean, what did he say tonight, Jay? I'm coming after you, Darren.
Right.
Right, and it's like it's not.
Wait,
Darren.
Keller said the metal mayor, the tough guy.
Right.
What did he say?
Yeah, coming after Darren. And Darren's response to that was like, it's not me, it's all of us that are pushing back. And that's what we have to ignite and get the funds to push back against this narrative and to push back against his radical left policies.
Right. He's just a little bully. And I think it does hit that tipping point. Let me give you an example. It's not even a donor. But Alex Ubaya has got a tour of the West Side Shelter.
Yeah.
And if you guys remember this, and during the debate, and the person who agreed to give him this is a mayoral candidate. They should be able to get tours of this. They're running on the issues. The better they understand the issues, the better. She gave him a tour of the West Side Shelter, and Keller fired her, and admitted it in a debate. It was a crazy moment.
It's unbelievable.
And he paid the price for it. And so you're seeing that because he got exposed, and that's why you see the change number as big as it is tonight. Because because Alex stood up to the bully and showed him exposed him for who he is.
Well, I think that's what's so frustrating is that there are real bullies that are out there running, and we know about it personally. And it's why we got to get very strong opinions about who should be running and who you should, when people ask us who to vote for, we tell them because we're like, we kind of know the inside baseball game on a lot of these people. Right. And you want somebody that's has good character and will fight for the people and it's not in it for themselves. So just back to the fact that I've heard this 1,000 times from Jay, that you want to hit somebody with the message for the candidate at least 7 times. Am I right, Jay? Is this right? Is this about what you told?
If you have the money.
If you have the money.
Or sometimes once, or zero. Sometimes zero.
Sometimes zero.
Waving a flag in the air, hoping they see it.
Yeah, if somebody gets it, right? But what's a realistic fundraising number for you? Like, what are you going to try to raise? Because this, again, we haven't even said the date yet. The runoff is actually on December 9th. Right. So that's not that far away.
Right. And we really honestly have less than 3 weeks to raise a significant amount of money and push back against what Keller's going to have, which is an unlimited war chest. And so I think we need to raise at least $1 million to be able to get our message out there.
Okay, you kind of talked about
$1 million.
You said $1 million.
So we know. I mean, that money, Jay, goes into digital ads, it goes into mailers, it goes into television, it goes into touching voters in any way possible to try to litigate the case. You can't litigate the case; you're not going to beat him.
No, and I think donors can see with the campaign we just ran with the shoestring budget. We're very efficient with it. You guys were laughing tonight because what we had.
You're so
chips,
cheap.
Chips and salsa.
Jay is the cheap. Just in case you ever end up at a post-election party with Jay, it's going to be like Cheetos and Kool-Aid. But
if you're lucky, there were no Cheetos tonight.
No, but that's the thing, though. That's that, and I will say this. And by the way, we talk about Deb Haaland hemorrhaging money. Okay,
right.
She's raised almost $7 million and has $2 million left. When you don't keep an eye on your campaign and you don't bring people in to help you run that campaign that care about every last dollar, that shows how you're going to govern.
Right.
And you've seen it with Keller, you're seeing it with Deb Haaland, and you see it with Darren because they're on a shoestring budget. So if you give good people, smart people, the additional funds they need to do the job, they'll do it. And that's what this opening is.
It doesn't matter how much you raise. It matters how much you spend convincing and communicating with voters. Yeah. So if you waste all this money on overhead, it doesn't matter. Yeah. Right. As you saw with Deb Haaland.
Right. There's no fancy signs, Jay. There's no fancy signs. There's no fancy parties, right? That's not what a candidate's about. It doesn't win you in an election.
It's about convincing voters. It's about making the case.
That's right.
Yeah.
So, but Guy, what do you think about raising $1 million? You know how hard that is.
Yeah. And I think it's going to be, I think it's going to be hard to do. But I think this is the shot to me.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, it is the shot. And so what ends up happening, you can kind of explain this. So what ends up happening, though, is when Jessica, she is relentless. And what she does each day is...
I miss Jessica just telling you what to do. I loved it.
She hands you a list of 25 to 30 people, and you just start going down that list, making phone calls. And you hate it because, most of the people aren't there. So you got to follow back up with them. Call. Well, yeah, they're there. They're absolutely sending you to voicemail. Yeah. But here's one thing that you do notice at this point in the juncture. Let's just treat this like it is the primary, the end of the primary, because that's what it feels like, right?
Right.
And so, except for it's a much more compressed time frame. but you gain this extra momentum when you win the primary or when you get into the runoff if you're Darren.
Right.
Because there is that cresting situation, especially here when you look at the actual numbers. And then you've got to grind it out. But Jess, I think that the thing for you guys, which is going to be critical, is not only getting the people Albuquerque to do this. You're going to need I think, a couple of big events in Albuquerque with people that can get big groups of people together. I think small dollar would be helpful.
Right. We're going to need all of it.
You're going to need all of it.
Yeah.
And then you're going to have to expand. It's going to have to be a statewide thing, right? I mean, seriously, if you're in Farmington or you're in Carlsbad or you're in Hobbs, like this race matters.
Right.
And I think that is one thing where you've run all those statewide campaigns. That's going to be critical, I would think.
Right, absolutely. Yeah, we're going to have to be talking and touching everybody we can to see if we can get as much support as possible, because we can't just rely on Albuquerque. And it will benefit the whole entire state, not just Albuquerque.
Yeah, for sure. Well, let's talk about some of the other races, Mark, because obviously we talked about pushback, right? People were saying, listen, we don't want Keller anymore. Two people that are fighting against Keller on a daily basis in city council is Dan Lewis and Renee Grout. They both won their seats again, so they both run re-election, which was great news, I feel like. And I mean, I have to say too, before we talk about them, and Courtney Jackson on the school board.
Yeah, she did great.
I'm so excited that she was able to be re-elected as well. So let's talk a little bit about city council and what we're seeing here, just re-election.
Dan's numbers are good. Doesn't go to a runoff, 53-47. Obviously, with only two of them in the race, you don't. So that part's helpful. But there was some talk about this race being a bit closer, could be a concern. Some of the early numbers, Jay, early vote and some of the absentee stuff, you kind of look at it and go, there's some real Democrat advantages, and they didn't end up bearing out.
Yeah, and I also was obviously working for Dan and Renee, and it was concerning. The Democrats outspent Dan. Athena Allen outspent him 2-1. She spent over $100,000, and they hammered him. There were more Democrats that voted in that election than Republicans, but Dan has done a fantastic job on the city council. And so he was able to appeal to Democrats, to independents, and to Republicans. And these two races, I think, make a statement in this sense. A lot of times you see voters really upset. It's a, quote, a change election, and they're throwing all the incumbents out. They reelected two incumbents by substantial margins, and Renee Grout in a Democrat district, another Democrat district, Dan Lewis, and they reelected them, and then 65% of them voted against Tim Keller. So it tells you that change message is focused very squarely on Tim Keller, because the councilors who have pushed back on Keller were rewarded and reelected in Democratic districts, both of them.
Yeah, that's big.
And I think that sends a message.
No, that's big. And by the way, the only other counselor who had no issues was Feichelborn, obviously, because she didn't have an opponent. Right? Really. I mean, all things considered, she didn't. However, there are a couple more runoffs that are going to be part of the mayor's election as well. And that's going to be District 3. We won't spend a lot of time on this. I don't know. I mean, Carissa Pena, she's currently on the council. She's scraping. I mean, she is scraping against Teresa Garcia. So we'll see what ends up happening with that. Do we know anything about, I don't know a great deal about this situation. All right, good. All right, let's move on then. All right, I have no idea. But and then Tejas ends up ahead in this District 1. But again, that's a pretty close battle. So who knows how that stuff ends up playing out. But at the end of the day, I think you make a really good point about what's going on the council, and that it pays off to stand up for people and just be the person for logic. And Dan Lewis especially reminds me of that. Renee Grout has such a great feel for, I think, communicating with people. She's
a small business owner.
Yeah.
Really smart, really common sense smart, and does a fantastic job of just trying to be responsive and to do what's right for the district.
Yeah.
And so I think both of them really deserve the re-election, and they got it.
Well, they're also just like common sense, right? And they're very easy to approach, to talk to. You can tell that they're in the same boat you are. They're not like, hey, I'm up here.
It's exactly what Mark was talking about.
Yeah.
About when elected officials or candidates understand voters and they don't get disconnected. And,
stay close to them.
Right.
Okay.
No,
so
okay.
let's move on to some national stories, okay? So congratulations, obviously, to Darren. We'll be pushing for him here on the show as well. Again, December 9th is that runoff. And if you'd like to support Darren, tell us
Go
what
to
the website
DarrenWhiteForMayor.com. Can contribute there. I mean, that money, as Jessica's saying, it's going to be important that we get in as much as we can early, because Mayor Keller's going to try to bury us with negative ads right out of the gate. He's going to try to, discourage people from supporting Darren, and it's all a trick to get him to be the first mayor ever reelected to 3 consecutive terms, which
ridiculous.
is amusing to me because he's attending No Kings rallies at the same time he's winning a third consecutive term.
Unbelievable.
Yeah,
And most people just wouldn't have the gall to run for it. They would just be like, look, I have enough self-awareness to realize that I've lit the house on fire. I probably should get out of the house. But this guy is like, show me where the matches are.
But I'm sorry to keep going back to that, but that's what his speech tonight, when I saw, it's the lack of self-awareness. That's to me, when I watch it, I'm like, it's weird. It's like, there's this disconnect between what reality is happening for all of us here in Albuquerque and then what comes out of his mouth.
Yeah, no, I agreed. It's crazy. He's crazy.
Lack of self-awareness.
Okay, yeah, and you mentioned the national. So let's get to some national stuff. Just talk some broader politics because it is going to matter. I mean, national politics is going to matter in this race too. But I want to talk about. We'll start with New York City.
Yeah, this one's
This is
the
the headline,
hardest.
by the way.
This is the hardest
The red
one for
apple
me.
from the New York Post.
Yeah, New York Post says, on your marks, get set, Zoe. Socialist Mamdani wins race for mayor, the red apple. This is hard for me to even talk about, quite frankly. I'm shocked that we have a socialist, anti-Semitic guy as the mayor of New York City. Like, how did this guy get elected, you guys?
So let me make a case, and then you guys can tell me if you think it's crazy. I think the economy is part of this, and I think New York City right now, first of all, it's not the New York City from 20 years ago. It's not the same place. But at the same time, I think you also have a sense to some degree in this country of hopelessness where people are turning to, and in some ways they've turned to Trump, because the electorate is flipped in a lot of ways, and a lot of low-income voters look at Trump and say, I can identify with him. He speaks my language in a very unique way. And I think Mamdani, what worries me about a guy like him is people feel like they want to break the system in any way possible because they feel like the system doesn't work for them anymore. And so when you go and look at him, he is so not only inexperienced, never run anything. Not only that, but some of how extreme he is in his beliefs and how misguided he is in his core tenets, not only socialism, but really, some of the personal stuff and the people he's backed are scarier than his policies, quite frankly. But I think people are willing to overlook that because I think right now they are lost in New York City and they don't know where to turn for an answer.
Well, I think unfortunately too, you can make socialism sound really good. And versus what happens in practice. And unfortunately, there's a lot, especially the far left of the Democratic Party has become believers in socialism. And that's disappointing. You saw it here in Albuquerque with Mayor Keller starting a guaranteed basic income program.
Yeah.
And it just does not work. We know it doesn't work in practice. We know how bad it is. But he's basically making all these promises and everyone gets everything free. And like Mark, you're talking about with the economy and people hurting like that. And he's going to say, oh, you'll get everything for free. We'll do this, we'll do that. And he's making all these promises. And I think you get, unfortunately, he was able to convince people. And you also have to realize there was not a strong opponent for him. He's dealing with Cuomo.
Cuomo was
It is unbelievable the people they put up against him. I think what's interesting is all these promises. Again, his promises remind me in a lot of ways of like the kid that ran for student council, right? The student body president, where he's going to give you free pizza on Fridays and you can wear jeans and shorts whenever you want. It's all these promises, like I'm going to offer really low affordable housing. The reality check on that from a financial model doesn't work. That's what he's going to have to scrape that back. I'm telling you right now, he's not going to be able to keep that up. So that's what's going to be interesting. And then you have enough. What's fascinating to me is you have enough people that are in the United States that lived in communist and socialist, countries who have said, "Wake up, New York! What are you doing? This didn't work." This is why we're here now. It's because it didn't work for us when we were growing up. I
mean, one of the more amusing, telling things that I remember was when President Trump wins election and the mainstream media was shocked that he won the Venezuelan vote, the Venezuelan American vote. And they're like, how would he do that? He's so strong on immigration. Because they get what the socialism is. That's why they're here. And if you talk to from Cuba or from Venezuela or other, they know this doesn't work. Just look what Joe Biden did right when he took office and decided everyone gets everything for free, sent out checks, spent all that money, and what happened with inflation and the economy. Yeah. Unfortunately, a lot of people don't understand that. A lot of people don't understand that Venezuela 20-some years ago was the wealthiest country in Latin America, and Hugo Chavez gets elected, brings in socialism, and it's the disaster it is today, and it happens fast.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, it happens really fast, and that's my concern for New York.
Yeah, a lot of people even talk about his whole plan for this government-funded or government-run grocery store, right? Where basically then you have people that have actually lived in countries with government-run grocery stores.
Cuba.
And they're saying, guess what was on the shelf? Like vinegar and like a couple of basic things. Like, because after a while, then there's nothing there, right? So be careful what you wish for. Be careful what you vote for.
But I think you're missing. I agree. You're lecturing these people that it's going to fail. I agree with that. Okay, but that doesn't get to the point of why they made the vote in the first place. There's so many of them who feel like there is no hope in the current system in which we live. And I'm just telling you that if we don't have an answer for that, and if there isn't an answer for bringing prices down and making the American dream affordable and attainable for more people, get ready, because you ain't seen nothing yet. There's going to be more Mamdanis.
I agree with you on that.
That's frightening. Okay, let's move to Virginia. This one wasn't as shocking for us. At least the governor's race in Virginia, not as shocking, I don't think. I think it was. I'm sorry, but
Winsome Earle-Sears ran a horrendous campaign. I mean, and when you go get clocked by 15 points in a race like this was bad news. I mean, she did not run a good race. Obviously, though, there are some issues, when we talk about the economy and things like that. But you guys, your thoughts on this?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a huge problem. You have, when the top of the ticket that happens, a lot of candidates down the ballot have no chance. And that's what, I guess you look at, I'm sure you'll talk about the attorney general's race.
Yeah.
And you're like, how does that happen? Well, it happens because you can't lose the top of the ticket by 15 points.
Yeah.
Or you're going to lose.
Yeah, and let's look at that. So let's just look at these numbers. Just so you know, like Spanberger got 1.906 million, right? And Sears got 1.409, okay? Then you go look at exactly what you're talking about, Jay, the attorney general's race, and you see Mieres actually outran the top of the ticket, which is not easy to do.
No.
Right?
You've done it, and you know how hard that is.
Yeah, it's tough, right? And then, so this guy, Jay Jones, this is the guy that threatened the,
Speaker of the House. Former Speaker of the House.
And threatened his case. What scares me about this, though, yes, this was a closer race. It was less than half the gap, right? But what scares me about this is, do words matter anymore? Like, does it matter anymore? Can you say anything? Because again, this guy, Jay Jones, didn't lose a single endorsement. Didn't lose anything.
And I think what's so shocking is he's going to be the top lawman in the state of Virginia, and yet he's saying, I want to murder and have the children of the Speaker of the House, and I want them to bleed out in the arms of their mother. And then this is going to be the top lawman.
Well, it's stunning, and it shows, there's only so much swing vote available, and when the top of the ticket loses like that, it's a problem. And it's you bring up the point. It's disconcerting. This is the top lawman. Oh, you look at, was it last cycle when the sheriff's race, and Paul Pacheco was running in it and loses to a guy who's the current sheriff, Sheriff Allen, who got fired from the state police after admitting to lying in a police report, admitting to lying to the judge in a trial. And this guy's now the sheriff. Yeah. And it's because voters, whether they hear all that information or you just get, there's only so much swing vote available.
Yeah. I mean, I feel bad for, imagine how bad Glenn Youngkin feels right now. Like, that's got to be rough tonight for him.
This isn't news to Glenn Youngkin.
Well,
Glenn Youngkin knew.
Jay Jones, you think that one doesn't break his heart a bit?
Yeah, I'm sure it does. But I mean, he knew, I guarantee you, and I don't know this from a personal conversation with him, but I guarantee you he knew this race was over 6 months ago.
Right. And it hurts Republicans because the Republican Attorney General who lost that is a great up-and-coming candidate. He's a Cuban-American. He's a very strong...
Don't be surprised if he's the nominee for Republicans to run for governor in 4 years.
That's true. That's a good point. Yeah. Okay, let's move on to New Jersey.
Jackie Chitz, baby. I thought Jackie Chitz had a shot. I mean, I was hoping.
No,
but then
I
talked to a pollster I know tonight. Okay. And she said Ciattarelli never had a shot, and he got clocked. 13 points. Did you guys see this coming?
I'm not that surprised. I mean, it's disappointing, but you got to remember what New Jersey is. It's a very Democratic state at the end of the day. Yeah. And
but Trump got within 6. But that shows you how bad Biden was, right? This is the red light I want to talk about, because this is a blinking red light to me. And in fact, our pollster friend said the same thing. You want to blame this on something. You got to blame it on the economy. You got to blame it on the fact that prices are still too high. And that's what's killing people right now. So if you're a Republican and you know that you have a Republican in the White House, they control the House and they control the Senate, that's where the blame fell over the past 24 hours when you start seeing these results.
Right. And and this is 1 year in. And so Republicans are getting a lot done, but they're going to have to be real aggressive in communicating what's happening and how they're getting it done. And it's just a challenge in these blue states or in blue cities like we're talking about.
Yeah, it's again kind of shocking. All right, we have a fun one we want to share with you, Jay. We're not sure you got to see this one. So we're going to bring this one up. This is the mayor of Eagle Nest, New Mexico.
We got Fox Gwynn.
You guys,
Fox Gwynn pulls this out with 14 votes.
There was 14 votes to 8 votes for the Eagle Nest, and we love Eagle Nest.
Yes,
so we like it up there a lot. But I just was like, oh my goodness! I was like, wait, 8 votes or 8%, Mark? And you're like, no, that's 8 votes.
No, it's Chrissy Lund. She got 8 votes. Fox Gwynn, though, pulling in 64% of the vote with 14 votes.
I always think it's bad when you see a
Fox.
president right here.
I always think it's bad when you have a candidate and they end up with 1 vote and you realize like they exposed everyone as a liar who told them they voted for him when they know they only got their own vote.
Yeah, exactly. That's totally true.
So then I guess some of this here, and we'll wrap fairly quickly, but where do you guys think we're at then? I think in general in this country, Trump's approval numbers are underwater. That's pretty clear. And so you have a lot of people who I know for a fact, and I've gotten calls from them and everything else, who are looking at other races in the state next year. And so they see what happens, in the New Jersey and Virginia races, and then you see what happens in races in New Mexico. What can you glean from tonight from candidates who say, I may want to run for U.S. Senate, I may want to run for governor, I may want to run for, whatever, House, whatever it is. Would you tell them after tonight you should more seriously consider it? Or do you look at tonight and say, no, stay away from it? Or would you say, jury's still out until we know what happens in Albuquerque?
Well, I think jury's always still out, but I would think you're looking at, it's a midterm year. And so it's always going to be a challenge for the incumbent party. So we know that. So you have to run really strong campaigns. You have to try to localize them as much as you can. And we've seen that in, go back to like Heather Wilson's races where there were tough times where we'd lose the House and she'd hold on to her seat because she was really good about raising a lot of money and running really strong campaigns, very localized campaigns, very much about her and her opponent, and to stay out of any kind of what was going on with the national environment. And that's how we lost the House in 2006, for example, and she held her seat here, And so I think if you're looking at it, you got to understand what you're up against. It's, Darren ran great tonight and he's in a really strong position. He understands it's Albuquerque. It's a
What's the partisan difference in the vote? What was it?
I think it was like 55-29, something like that.
Oh,
it was a big gap, and that's where it shows. And I think Keller is so cocky because of that. But what you saw tonight was voters are willing to cross on to when they want change like that. So, you put it together, but you have to make it localized, and you'll see this. Mark my words. Keller's going to try to make this a national election because whatever he can do to hide his own record.
Right.
And so candidates looking at it, you have to, it's always a challenge, but it can be done. Like as you've seen in some of these races, Heather Wilson being a great example. It's a tough. New Mexico one was a ridiculous seat, and I think that year was won by 367 votes or something like that. Mm-hmm. It can be done, but you really have to run a strong campaign and be, like you say, Mark, you got to be realistic about what the challenges you're facing and address them.
Yeah.
It's a grind. It's a grind.
So then tomorrow morning, what do you have Darren doing?
Well, the whole time I'm like, holy crap, we got to raise $6,000 every minute. You know, you guys are wasting my time right now.
Oh, we are wasting time. Yeah, no doubt. Yeah, we don't pay. We don't pay.
Please go to Darren White from there.
DarrenWhite.com. Let's put up on the screen. Yeah, it's like we got to roll.
So what will you do with them? You have a list for them tomorrow morning?
Yeah, absolutely.
And will it be a statewide list? You'll just start.
Yeah, for sure, absolutely.
Yeah. And he had people that supported him before, and they'll go right back to them because they can give again.
Yeah.
What are the limits?
It's
6,000.
How much? 6,000.
6,000 per person per entity.
And businesses can give too.
Businesses can give as long as they don't have a contract with the city. So you could, if a couple and they have a business, they could give 18.
Yeah.
Got it.
Jeez. Okay.
Jess, I just miss having Jess around to boss around Mark.
I know. I got to keep you guys on points. Like, we're talking about New Jersey and New York. I'm like, hey, we got to get New Mexico. We got to get Albuquerque. Like, hello. Bring it on in, guy.
Jess, given that you live in Rudoff, so you're used to the wild, I will end with this.
Yes.
This is our latest trail cam video. Okay, see this guy? I'll just hit it. I'm visiting across. Yeah, another Bobcat. He's constantly coming through this guy. And I've seen him multiple times.
When is Christy going to let you adopt him?
Oh, never.
Yeah.
We don't need a bobcat. We don't need a raccoon or a mountain lion or a bear. Okay?
Let me tell you something. We've had a ton of mountain lions, bears. I have not seen a raccoon on the trail cams. I will say that.
I know that to disappoint Jay. Who wanted
Did you
a
remember that bear
raccoon.
I showed you from the bear and raccoon were hanging out together? In Durango?
You guys in Durango, you have some just nappy looking bears.
Yeah, your bears are a little grizzly up in Durango.
Yeah, we've
Attack my
got some
bears.
bigger, fatter ones in Angel Fire. They're
I don't
much
know
bigger.
which ones I want to be around. But
Oh, you want to be around the big fat
neither,
ones because they're well
actually.
fed. They're done. His mangy bear.
I'm going to
Chase,
send a picture so you can put them up. My bear
it
with
is
his friend the
that thing is
raccoon.
mangy. Like I'm down to my last meal. I don't know where this thing's going to go.
I would stay away from
So
Jay's
it's
bear. Yeah, don't go anywhere near
It's
Jay's bear.
ridiculous. But all right, so now we know that's our little election special. We appreciate you joining us. We're going to continue to move forward. We'll have another show coming up, Christy.
Yeah,
when are we doing that exactly?
Well, that's a good question, Mark. When are we doing our next show? It will be later this week. I'll tell you that much for
You
sure.
think he'll record it?
Well, let's hope so.
No, I
mean,
think.
what time is it?
It's like almost 11.
It's
but
11:30.
No,
It's
we'll have
almost
Ella
11.
punch it. Ella's a much better puncher than me.
Yeah, there's no doubt about that. Okay.
Yes.
Well, thanks you guys so much for joining us. We appreciate it. We appreciate our guests today, Jess and Jay. We'll have Jess on again just to rip on Mark at some point when you have time. But you're busy right
You guys
now.
didn't get any good
you're all-
stories.
See, we got game day, Jess. When Jess looks at you, she's all serious and she looks at you like,
Yeah.
Well, she's got
Because-
a
I've been
job
up for
to
like
do.
24 hours at
She's
this point.
she's gonna get like a nap,
yeah.
and then she's got to get
maybe.
to work again.
She's got to get to work.
She's got to get to work tomorrow.
Yeah, and so for those of you who know Jess, and I know there are people on this podcast who do, she's going to be on the other end of the phone in about 5 hours.
Yeah,
with
so
you.
take her call. Take her call tomorrow, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah.
Thanks for spending time with us. Make sure that you like and subscribe on our shows, and we appreciate all your support. And if you'd like to sign up for email, go to nodoubtaboutitpodcast.com and sign up for our emails. Thanks, you guys. God bless, and have a great night.
You've been listening to the No Doubt About It podcast. We hope you've enjoyed the show. We know we had a blast. Make sure to like, rate, and review. We'll be back soon, but in the meantime, you can find us on Instagram and Facebook at No Doubt About It Podcast.
No doubt about it.
The No Doubt About It podcast is a Choose Adventure Media production. See you next time on No Doubt About It.
There is no doubt about it.